Hello everybody, thank you for coming. We're here today to talk about municipal code compliance for pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers. My name is Matthew Frost. I'm an attorney for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. Among other things, I prosecute the municipal code violations pertaining to business, licensing, and regulation, including pawn and secondhand dealers. We have with us today Detective Hilbring from Chicago Police Department. He is the department's pawnbroker and secondhand dealer liaison. I suspect many of you know him already. Also here today is Miguel Campos. He's supervisor of business compliance investigations for Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. He supervises a team of investigators that are also monitoring and investigating business for compliance with the municipal code. These two gentlemen are the experts on today's topic. Thank you both for being here. You may have noticed the giant video camera. Today's program is being recorded and will be available online for viewing later. As many of you already know, in fall of 2017, City Council passed some new ordinances pertaining specifically to the purchase and sale of secondhand cell phones. And these new regulations may affect the business practices of pawnbrokers and or secondhand dealers. So we're, among other things, we're going to go over those today. The requirements of the municipal code pertaining to pawn and secondhand dealers, in addition to the basic licensing requirements, can basically be broken down on the one hand into record keeping and reporting requirements, inventory control requirements, and on the other hand, certain prohibited conduct, certain prohibited transactions. Some of these requirements are intuitive: no purchases from intoxicated persons, known thieves, minors, etc. Some are less so. The stolen cell phone database is a new requirement, and that's something we'll go over today. Some basic highlights of this overall scheme are first, the stolen cell phone database. This is an online service that you can, and in fact are required to use if you purchase used cell phones, to check with an international database of identification numbers that will identify phones that are reported lost or stolen. It would be prohibited by ordinance in the city of Chicago to buy any such phone that appears in that database, and required to report someone trying to sell it to the police department. Leads online reporting requirements are not new, but they are something that's being actively enforced, something that's required. They apply to both secondhand dealers and pawnbrokers that are dealing in certain types of merchandise, and my colleagues will go into more detail on that. Additionally, they'll talk about the inventory procedures that are required, some by the new ordinances. For instance, placing stickers with unique identifying numbers on purchased cell phones, and making those, as well as a log, available to investigators or the police department upon request. Amongst the materials today is a copy of the secondhand cell phone receipt form. This is a form promulgated by our commissioner here at Business Affairs, and businesses are required to give it to customers that purchase a secondhand cell phone. It contains a variety of information and then a statement that the the phone's not stolen per the stolen cell phone database. So, pursuant to the general regulatory purpose and the explicit goal of shrinking the market for stolen goods and reducing the incentive for property theft, especially as to cell phones, BACP and CPD have stepped up enforcement of these requirements. Some of them have been around for a while. There's a new focus, and I think it's fair to say that the industry can expect a little more scrutiny than has been the case in the past, and certainly more frequent inspection, attention to these requirements. My colleagues here will go into detail about what to expect from those inspections and what they'll be looking for, what you and your employees might be prepared for. I mentioned some of the printed materials. There's a copy of Chapter 4240 of the Municipal Code pertaining to pawnbrokers. I encourage you to take a copy if that might apply to you. 4264, applying to secondhand dealers. Take that if you believe that applies to you. There is also a copy, as I mentioned, of the secondhand cell phone receipt form. Again, the use of that is required for the sale of secondhand cell phones.
Where is that form that you keep referring to? Because I don't see it in the...
It'll be right up here.
Is it attached to one of the ordinances?
No, here. Here they are. Here.
Thank you.
All right, so regarding these ordinances, this is the current version that we've printed today. They do periodically change. City Council can amend this. You can find the current version compiled online at American Legal Publishing, amlegal.com, or at the City of Chicago Clerk's website. BACP will, in the near future, be sending an industry notice regarding some of this information and putting up a website that will have some of the same information that you're getting here today. So now I'm going to turn the floor over to Detective Hilbring. He'll speak on pawnbroker requirements. Then Mr. Campos will speak. At the end, I will briefly go over the administrative hearing process, what happens if you do receive a notice of violation either from CPD or from BACP. Detective?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Detective William Hilbring. I work out of the Bureau of Detectives for the Chief of Detectives of the Chicago Police Department. I am the pawn shop / secondhand dealer liaison. For those who do not know me, welcome aboard and thanks for coming. And I would like to thank BACP for having me down for this presentation. Today, I'm representing or speaking on behalf of the pawnbrokers laws, okay? I know you guys are very experienced. You've been there. Some of you have been there, pawnbrokers, as long as I've been alive, so you already know. But we decided, BACP and myself decided to put this workshop on because a few months ago, several of our shops were starting to get administrative notice of violation, tickets for various reasons, mostly for not taking photos of jewelry, or the photos wasn't coming through the computer, through Leads Online, which they are required to report on Leads Online. So we decided to have this workshop to make sure that everybody is on board that knows the municipal ordinance and what's required of them. Okay, so here we have Wally's typical pawn shop here, and he says, hey, he's telling the customer, you also have 2 IDs and you can't redeem your stuff for 48 hours. So you guys know that. So if somebody pawns something and then 2 days later they may have won the lottery or something and want to come get their stuff back, they have to wait 48 hours. They can't get it right back right away. Okay, and then you guys know what you are. You licensed businesses that engage in receiving property in pledge or as a security for money or other things that advance to the pawn or pledging. You pawnbrokers are businesses that are regulated by the Illinois State Statute Act 205 ILCS 510/01 and the Municipal Code of the City of Chicago, Chapter 4, Title 4, Chapter 240. Okay, you guys know most of these rules. We're going to go through them, and this is the significance. We want to make sure everybody knows what they do. Number 1, not permit anyone under the age of 18 years of age to pawn or pledge any items. Also, you have to keep records of every loan transaction. And although pawnbrokers are all through different ethnic neighborhoods, we want you to keep these records in the English language. Okay, and then everybody should know that your daily transactions should be reported by noon the next day through Leads Online. Okay, that's an electronic database where all your transactions go. Okay, and all these records, they should name the pawn or pledger's name, home address, date of birth, social security number if available, gender, height, and weight. And each time the transaction is done, it must identify that transaction with a number that relates to that transaction. Okay? And then when you take in the transaction, you have to describe the article, the time it was taken in, the amount of the loan, and the interest to be paid on that given loan. Okay? Each article, pawn or pledge, will be described by the brand name, model, and serial number. And if there's any other identifiers, any engravings, like in jewelry, you might have somebody's initials engraved in there, or a class ring, you make sure you put if the year is in there engraved or their name is engraved, we need you to note that as well. Okay. And all jewelry, including watches, must be photographed. Okay? And then this jewelry, which some people ended up getting citations for, every time the jewelry comes in, I don't care if Mrs. Jones has been your customer for 20 years, has pawned, redeemed, repawned, every time Miss Jones pawns that ring or watch, take a photo of it. Some of you guys know every now and then, for example, Miss Jones you may consider her having dementia. And one day she comes in your store and says, this is not my ring, this is not the same ring that I pawned. Yeah, Mrs. Jones, you've been pawning this ring for 20 years. This not my ring. So it's beneficial for you guys to take a picture of it every time, and that's what we're requiring you to do. okay? And then any property that is pawned or pledged cannot be removed or sold from the place of business for at least 30 calendar days. I've been in some stores and they said, oh, my boss took the cell phone and he put it in store, we can't keep it here. You have to keep that item there for 30 calendar days, okay? Any questions? Okay, and that's what Wally was telling the guy, he couldn't redeem his stuff for at least 2 business days, even though he won the lottery.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Oh. When you say that we're required to report to Leads Online,
Yes.
when we do this report, we do not have any corroborating information from Leads Online that they were successful in receiving it.
Usually, good question, but I believe Leads Online gives you a thing that it was uploaded. Do you all people get that?
Leads Online not only tells you it's uploaded and what time it was uploaded, right when you do it, when you look at your history, it'll show you if there were any errors caused by your file, so you can fix them if necessary.
Right.
Like you accidentally fat fingered something or whatever.
Right, Mr.
It'll
Bill,
also
going
show
to
you,
your
like 6 transactions, 6 photos.
Right.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of go back into the
history,
your
your history,
transaction
transaction history.
history.
Good question, Mr. Bill. Okay, so when you're taking these items, no record should be defaced, erased, or obliterated. If you get a TV coming in and look like somebody chipped the serial numbers away, you're not supposed to take that item in. It might be chipped away for a reason. Now, if the serial number is unreadable, okay, is faint or whatever, you can put as many characters as you can and describe it in your description that is illegible, okay? You got a question?
If it's someone that's put it in before, and obviously the sticker or something has started to pull, but you can still get 2/3 of it, and you know that they pawned that particular item 2, 3, 4 times when the serial number was full,
Right.
can you still take that?
You can still take it in because it doesn't look like it's been deliberated, it's just faded, it's faint. But just duly note in your description, you can say repawn item has been here before, serial number now fading away. Any questions?
Are we supposed, I do get photos of all my electronics, but are you supposed to get now?
That's not required. Good question. She asked, do you need photos of your electronics? As of right now, we just require you to take photos of all your jewelry and watches. That's optional if you want to take pictures of everything that come in your store, that's up to you. Yes.
Just jewelry and watches, what if I take in a picture, a painting?
Well, painting,
I have to send you a photograph of the painting?
we're just jewelry and watches. Art has not been mentioned,
So
so.
no electronics, nothing?
No electronic, none. If you want to do that, we're very happy that you've done that, but it's not required in the municipal ordinance or in the state statute. Yes.
I have a question. I have a lot of small Bluetooth speakers that come in, and a lot of them have models, but they don't have a serial number. They have
Okay, note that. Serial number unknown, UNK.
So I could take it in.
You could take it in. It's not been obliterated where somebody
No,
physically
I know it says
made you
model
not
on
have a
it,
serial
but
number.
okay.
There are a lot of items, even jewelry watches, that don't have a serial number, especially your lower models, they may not have a serial number. That doesn't mean you can't take it in. You're very welcome to take it in.
Okay.
But just note, the serial number
Because I have
unknown.
peers too that come in, and some of them don't have a serial number, but they're like.
Just note it. Just note that, serial number unknown. Okay. So you guys also, our state statute for pawnbrokers only asks for one ID, but our municipal ordinance asks us for 2 pieces of ID, okay? So all these IDs, they must bear the home address and the name of the person pawning or pledging. And then these IDs must be of a government-issued type, okay? So if you ask what type of government-issued IDs, you got passport, military IDs, you got the state ID, the driver's license. Other type of IDs that are accepted as the second portion is like a bill, a library card, thing of that nature. Yes, Lam?
What about, for example, they're called matriculas, the Mexican.
Mexican consulate card? Yes, that's a government-issued ID.
The tax number?
Yes.
No, if you've done business with somebody for years and you checked the 2 forms of ID when you first started doing business with them, do you need to make them bring the 2 forms of ID every time, or because you've done business with them countless times, do you have to make them pull that second form?
Well, that's required, so.
Okay.
Now, one of these guys sent them in to do that.
Call someone by name when they walk in the store.
All right.
Because I see them.
I'll let them answer that question, Miguel or Nick.
We would prefer that you have the ID with you.
No, if they have their government issued ID, meaning their driver's license, their state ID, do I need to ask them for that second form? And literally, I see them 2 or 3 times a week, and I can call them by name when they walk in?
We're honest, they gotta show it.
Okay, I'm just giving clarification.
I can't say no. Right.
And the main ID is, of course, the state ID, the driver's license. And the other form is just a verification, like a bill or a library card. Also, you guys have to be aware that at any time during your place of business operations, any CPD officer, inspector from BACP office are welcome to inspect your records, okay? So always remember that. Okay, and you guys, your ranges, pawn shops can open from 6 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. Usually, the average store opens at 9:30, and usually closes by 6:37. Usually during the holidays, like Christmas or something, somebody will take it till 9 o'clock. Okay. Okay, and then when you guys have a pawn or a pledge, make sure that your customer gets a copy of his transaction and signs off on it. Okay, so here's the Leads Online. This is what you look when you go into Leads Online. Okay, and then it has your username and your password, whichever you all create. Okay, this is what's required for secondhand stores and pawnbrokers to log in their daily transactions. Now, a lot of people prior to Leads Online had their own software, such as places like Pawn Master, Copy Pawn, etc. Okay, so what happens is most of you pawnbrokers are still uploading your stuff on your own database, and then it syncs to Leads Online, okay? Which is Leads Online is aware of that, and we all are aware of that, okay? So this is, if you do Leads Online, this is how it looks, okay? So here's a shop that just recently closed, Bucktown. So your location would come up, and then you put in the type of ticket, if it's a pawn or if it's a buy, and then you put the date and time of the transaction, the customer's name, all of that general information. Okay, this is called Ticket Assistant, which is through Leads Online. So for those of you who do not have a database of your own or use Pawn Master or Copy Pawn, you would do Leads Online and use Ticket Assistant. Okay, this is kind of faint, but in Ticket Assistant, and then you also have a way to sync it through your software as well. You have to ensure that for jewelry and watches that you upload that photo. Secondhand dealers as well. You buy a watch or you do a trade for a watch or anything like that, you have to upload, and jewelry, you have to upload the photo, okay? If you're having any issues uploading, if you have your own software, or if you have your own software, or if you want to use Leads Online to do that, they will show you how you upload it. They have a software called Image Capture. So Image Capture, you would have to let them, agree to them to capture the image of the jewelry, and that will sync to the Leads Online system, and it'll be a part of your report. Any questions?
Can someone give me this information in Spanish?
Hable español muy poco. Perhaps somebody from BACP can provide that for you. Miguel, can you?
Puedo hablar con usted después de la sesión.
Are you a secondhand dealer, sir, or pawnbroker?
Que si es de una persona o de
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think some people are here because I heard outside that they said it was some kind of business seminar started about 2:30. And I guess, but this is for municipal code compliance for pawnbrokers and secondhand dealer licensees. Or if you're interested or want to know about the business, you're very welcome to stay. But this is what this is for here. Okay, so now of the amendments, you got the copy of the amendments separate, but it's already, as Matt said, it's already in AmeriLegal, so it's been updated in the ordinance, okay? So the amendments for 4-240, no licensee shall take any or receive in pawn or pledge any property from a minor. We already knew that anyway, okay? Also, you can't buy anything for a minor. Sometimes I go in stores and I see a minor, he got a couple PS4 games, you know, and he's by himself. He's about 13 years old, and you know, most of the time I've never seen them buy it, so which is good. Yeah, you can't buy anything from a minor because that's a minor. He doesn't know what he's doing. Plus, you don't know where the minor got the item from. Yes.
That's 18 and up, right?
18 and up, yeah. Okay, and then something new. No licensee shall purchase or take in pawn any catalytic converter that is not attached to a motor vehicle. I know pawnbrokers really are not going to take this in, but this is a hot item that's being stolen all the time, okay? And it's probably going to a lot of these scrap shops, which we do not have reporting their daily transactions. I imagine it'll be in the near future. But it's out there, so somebody comes in there with a catalytic converter, you don't want to bother with it. Okay, and then as Matt said earlier, no licensee shall take in pawn or pledge anything from property from a convicted person of a theft, or burglar, or robber, and you also can't buy anything from them. Okay, what this is about is, you might say, well, how do I know this guy's a convicted robber or convicted thief or convicted burglar? Well, you might not know, but if you're forewarned by the police, the police might say, hey, this guy, hey, he's a known burglar or whatever, stay away from his stuff. Now, I don't know why they will want to do that in some essence, because if he did come and pawn or sell it to you, we have a chance to recover the proceeds. So, but some officers have gone around to the stores, I'm sure you know, and say, hey, stay away from this guy, he's a known burglar. Now, you guys, if you have had items that have been confiscated out of your store for a particular customer, then that's the one you don't want to take. You don't want to take no more stuff away from him, because you know he's been convicted, or at least he's been charged with a theft or a burglary. Any questions?
So in that case, if it's not on the do not buy list and leaves online, or an officer hasn't come in the store and given us, because we have a list of people that down on the south side they've given us to not do business with, we're just using our best
Right.
effort. And
The
if
best
for some reason
judgment.
something does fall through,
Right.
we don't know they're a theft.
Right.
It's
And
not-
speaking of judgment, if you got a customer that has lives way out in Northbrook or something, and he's got so many items, he's been in the day before, he comes in today, and he told me he'll be back tomorrow, and he's passing like 30 stores, you know, that should bring your antenna up. Something's wrong, and it would behoove you. I wouldn't take anything, because you don't know where he's getting it at. Some of these people will tell you that they're the manager at their building, and the residents wanted to clean out their storage rockers, and they told them they can have whatever they want, and they got brand new bicycles that are $2,000 in value. So yeah, right. So you gotta question these people, you know, so you don't end up taking an item, because you're the one that's going to lose the item. You have to come to court and file restitution charges for your loss. Okay. So now, no licensee shall buy, take, or receive from a person any cell phone. So that's what Matt and Miguel is really going to emphasize when he talks to the second-hand dealer. This is really the main thing that has been amended in the ordinance, the new cell phone law. Okay, so you want to make sure you check the make, model, and serial number and the IME number, and to see if it is identified as being reported stolen or lost in a stolen phone database. Okay, so a lot of you guys are asked, what's the stolen phone database? Some of you guys know, sure you know, Ulysses. Okay, the stolen phone database has been reported lost or stolen and must be linked to a GSMA, a group specialized mobile international, which keeps records for all stolen or lost phones in the United States and other countries. Okay, so some examples of these websites that you have to check are, you got the stolenphonechecker.com, you got checkman.com, and then you got swapper.com. Okay, so now with these cell phones, if the licensee buys or takes in a cell phone and pledge or pawn, after checking to see if the cell phone has been reported lost or stolen, the licensee has to keep a log with the date and time the cell phone was checked. So at your particular store, you have a log book that you keep, that you give an inventory number every time a phone is checked, and you note the date and time it was checked, and also the cell phone database that you use to check that phone. Okay? Okay? So also, with this log that you're going to keep, at any time, any CPD officer can inspect that log book and check the records from what cell phones you took in and how you logged that in your log book. Any questions?
The inventory number could be the ticket number, of course, right?
The inventory can be the ticket number,
It says-
whatever is convenient for you to keep up with the record of the inventory number which relates to that phone. If you want to put the inventory number relating to that phone to your pawn number or your buy number, that's up to you.
Do we have to do it for pawns as well, since obviously a pawn may
Yes,
become...
you have to do it because any phone that's pawned, traded, or sold to you, before you buy it, before you take it in pawn, or before you allow a trade, you have to check to see if the phone has been reported lost or stolen.
And this form is should be for pawns as well as...
No, we'll get to that, but that form there is that after you buy it, after you've bought it and it comes out of pawn, or after somebody pawned and it comes out of pawn, or you trade and everything's fine, then when you go to sell it to somebody, whoever you sell that phone to, you're supposed to fill that out, and that verifies that the phone that you sold to them has already been verified as being clear that it wasn't reported lost or stolen.
Question, these amendments to the municipal code, they're taking effect instantly?
They're already in effect. It came in, what was that, Matt, at the end of September? It became official at the end of September.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know about it, huh, Alberto? Yeah. Any questions? Okay, so with these phones, when you take them in and you pawn or you buy it, you have to attach a sticker with it as well, with that inventory number that you gave the phone. You got to put a sticker there that labels the inventory number. So if an officer comes in or any of the inspectors from BACP come in, go look at that log book and they can look at that cell phone. The sticker number matches the inventory number that you gave to that phone. Okay? It could be a unique number, okay? Or if you want, you could give it the number that you gave for the pawn or taking it in or the buy. But one thing I will say, and Liz, I think you need to listen to this. Now, if you got a pawn and you've bought 4 phones, so you can't give all 4 phones that pawn number unless you want to do it an A, a B, a C, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, and that goes to that form we said, if you go turn around and sell that phone, you make sure you have that form. You can make copies, is that correct? You need to make copies, and then for you guys, if you run out or something happens, contact me or BACP, and we'll just have to mail you out some new forms. But
there
you
any
need to
website?
keep those.
Is there any website we can go to get these forms, or?
Good
do we have
question.
all copies of them?
Not yet, but there will be.
All right, thank you.
Obviously, if you buy something from somebody that it's not in swap, it's stolen or, blocked in any way, you go to sell it 30 days later, and the person bought it from you, it's clear, it's clean the books, and for whatever reason, that person waited 45 days to report it stolen.
That could happen. That's a good question. I'm gonna let Matt answer how they would deal with that.
And we've only had it happen probably once in the last 2 years when the sense of selling a phone where someone has returned it back to us.
That can
Give them
happen.
their money back, and we usually turn it over to whatever detectives happen to come by. But
So, one more time?
we've only had it happen once in the last couple of years that we've been reselling phones, where we sold it to somebody, a couple weeks later, they come back and they're like, hey, the tablet couldn't be turned on, they say it's stolen. I'm like, well, we checked the IMEI, I'm so sorry, let me look at the IMEI now. Of course, now the IMEI is showing it's stolen. It turns out whoever it was that sold it to us just took their time to report it, and then they claimed on insurance to get a replacement. We obviously gave them a refund. We then, the next time a detective came by, we gave them the item and said, hey, here you go. So it's only happened once in all this time, so it's a unique situation, but
interesting
it
question.
can happen. I mean, I
Your,
hate to say it.
your obligation is at the time you take it in.
Okay, so as
To
long
check
as
the
it's.
database.
Okay.
And if it gets in the database later, you've made a record that you checked it when you took it
When we
in.
did it. Okay, perfect, let's just double check it.
Okay, that's a good question, and hold on one second. That's a good question because it happens, especially when the iPads first came out and the iPhones. Some of our pawnbrokers and our secondhand dealers would take in the cell phone, they would take in the iPad, and then actually, if you look in the settings, the customer that's pawning or selling the item is the owner or whatever of the phone, allegedly. But later on down the line, if they go to turn around and sell it, when they go to turn around and sell it, the person that buys the phone tries to put in their information, or later on, something comes on that screen that this phone has been reported lost or stolen. That happens. I don't know if it's some kind of insurance thing or whatever. Some of these people, we've had Liz herself has had to go down to the Apple store herself with the bill of sale, where she's took in the pawn with the same guy's information that pawned the item, and his name is in there in the iCloud and everything. Sometime Apple would honor her and clear the phone, and then sometime they still wouldn't unlock the phone or the iPad for her. So just keep that in mind. Be careful with these electronic items, cell phones and iPads and all that. Try to check as much as you can. They have so many different websites to see if they're reported stolen. I would utilize all my resources before I buy or take in a phone or electronic and pawn. Okay, so you all know about the form that you're supposed to use. And this form, as Matt said, it came from the commissioner of BACP. Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm a little confused with the steps for the cell phones and the second-hand deal. When do we, like, is this is a copy for us and a copy goes to the person we're buying from?
That buys your phone. And that copy that you give him or her that buys your phone from your store, or that goes with a trade and you trade a phone for them, that verifies that that phone that you sold to him or her has been checked in a stolen cell phone database and has not been reported lost or stolen.
But this cannot serve as the log since it has all of the information?
No, a log should be like a log book. Should be like a log book because you're going to give it a number. You're going to give it an inventory number for each cell phone that you take in. Okay? You got it?
But I couldn't assign a number to this form and keep all of these in like a binder?
You could do that. I don't see a problem with that.
It's the same.
Whichever way is convenient for you, that you're noting that you checked the phone, you gave it a number that you checked it on. Like she wanted to use the same number as the transaction number. If you want to do that, fine. I don't have no problem. But so long as you know that that number that inventory number that you give, but you check the phone, and then you have a log. If you want to put it on the back in a book, that's fine. As long as you keep a record that you check that particular phone, okay? That's what we're looking for. And that phone, before you turn around and sell it, should also have a sticker that remains there until you sell the phone with the inventory number.
The problem with this form as that record is that you have to check the stolen cell phone database when the phone comes in. You're giving this receipt when the phone goes out. So it's got to happen. The two records are at different times. So this, unless it also reflects the time you first checked the database, it wouldn't suffice for that.
Well, I think, man, what she was saying is she was just going to keep the log number on the back, but she's going to make a copy as well once she sells the phone. As long as she keeps it in the book. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, licensees shall not purchase or activate any secondhand cell phone that has been reported lost or stolen. So, if it's reported lost and stolen, you're not supposed to buy it. You're not supposed to let it be pawned, and not supposed to trade for it. And if the cell phone has been reported lost or stolen, you should report this to the Chicago Police Department. So, if you say, who should you contact the Chicago Police Department, you guys, most of you guys know me, and I'll leave my card here. You can give me a call, or you can notify your local district that, hey, you know, you own such and such secondhand store or your pawn shop, and you're located at blah, blah, blah. You just had a cell phone came in that has been reported lost or stolen. Okay? And any law enforcement officers from Chicago Police Department can come and recover that cell phone from you that has been reported lost or stolen. Any questions? Okay, well, this is my information here. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. If you have any further questions, we'll be around to address any further questions. Yes?
Recently, I think somebody from your department had requested hair color and eye color to be put on our tickets. And that's not in the municipal code. I just want to know, do we not need to provide that?
That's a good question. I think Matthew and I saw that administrative notice of violation that you got requesting hair color, and that was an invalid ANOF.
So we don't need that.
No,
And
that's
so
not.
I've had a woman literally come in the morning in one wig and came in 4 hours later with a different one, and I was like, I can only put one hair color. What's your natural hair color? And she was
Right.
like, black.
Yeah.
So I just, you know.
But Leads Online, I mean, they have all those subsections, because we're not the only municipality that uses Leads Online for reporting. There's several others. So you can fill in as much as information as you can. But what I want you to fill in is everything on that driver license, everything on that state ID. But you don't have to really do the hair color or nothing like that. And getting back to these cell phones, okay, now with you guys using Leads Online in closing, I want you to put the serial number of the cell phone in the serial number field. And then in the description field, would you put in the IMEI number for me? Okay, some carriers, the IME number and the serial number are one and the same. But most of them, it's not. Like I have an Apple iPhone. iPhone 7 has a serial number and an IMEI number. So I would want you to do both. Okay? Any questions? Thank you very much for your time.
right, good afternoon. My name is Miguel Campos. I'm a supervisor with Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. My presentation won't be as long as Detective Hill brings, but I hope it's informative. We're going to start with important definitions for those of you that are not familiar with it. So a secondhand dealer is any person who engages in the business of purchasing, selling, receiving, trading, consignment selling, or otherwise transferring for value any secondhand property. Notwithstanding the foregoing, nothing in this chapter applies to pawnbrokers. So you don't need both a pawnbroker's license and a secondhand dealer's license, but the cell phone provisions still apply to you. Or if you're a charitable religious organization and you're engaging in or spending in excess of $1 million per year on purchases of used articles and material. For our purposes, audio-video equipment is going to include, but it's not limited to stereo, speakers, radio, video recorders, audio recorders, camera, DVD players, etc. And then serial numbers, that definition changed as we were speaking. It can be it's in reference to a cell phone or any other wireless communication device, and it can be either the MEID number, IMEI number, or the actual electronic serial number. As Detective Hilbring was stating, an iPhone would have both a serial number and an MEID number on it. To reiterate, a stolen cell phone database means a stolen cell phone database where you can type in model serial number and then check. It has to be linked to a group special mobile association database, and I'll go through an example of one of those in a couple of slides. An unlicensed secondhand dealer is any person who engages in the business of purchasing, selling, receiving, trading, consignment selling, or otherwise transferring for value any secondhand property. For our purposes, for the city's purposes, it's a rebutable presumption that you are a secondhand dealer if you're found with 5 or more used cell phones, so secondhand cell phones. So if you're in possession of 5 or more used cell phones in your store, then we are going to consider you to be a secondhand dealer, and you're unlicensed if you don't have a license with us. And then this definition is important for our purposes for trade-in programs. It's a program that's offered by a wireless telephone service provider or manufacturer of wireless communication devices that is not primarily engaged in purchasing personal property from any type or person. So essentially the trade-in program, let's say you're operating a Boost mobile store and you allow me to walk in with my Sprint phone and trade it in for a brand new phone. If all you're doing is trading in and then that cell phone, you don't resell it or offer it for sale and you ship it off somewhere else and it gets sold, you do not need a secondhand dealer's license. If you're gonna take the trade-in phone and then sell it on your own, separate with or without service, then at that point you do become a secondhand dealer. So again, no secondhand dealer shall purchase any article of secondhand property from any person that's known to be a thief, has been convicted of theft, robbery, or armed robbery, or any person found to be the owner of stolen property which has been bought. Such property shall be returned to the owner thereof without the payment of the amount paid by the secondhand dealer for the stolen property. So essentially this is saying if someone walks up to you and you know they're a known thief, you buy the cell phone from them, you give them $50 for it, and then later Detective Hillbringer or any member of CBD comes to you with proof that it's a stolen cell phone, you have to give up the cell phone without getting the $50 back from the person you bought it from. No secondhand dealer shall purchase, take, or receive from any person any cell phone whose make, model, and serial number is identified in the stolen cell phone database. Before purchasing, taking, or receiving from any person any cell phone, the secondhand dealer shall check the stolen cell phone database to verify that the cell phone is not stolen or lost cell phone, and you shall keep a record in an inventory log with the date and time of such verification, the make, model, serial number of the cell phone, and a unique inventory number for each cell phone. The inventory number can be anything of your choice. In the case of a pawn shop, it could be the pawn number. For any other used cell phone stores, it can be a number that you decide. If you want to start with the number 1 and just keep a sequence of it as long as the logbook matches. If CPD or a BACP investigator shows up and you have a sticker on a cell phone that says 5, I should be able to flip to your logbook, look at cell phone number 5, and see when you checked it across the database. A secondhand dealer shall issue to any person who purchases a secondhand cell phone from the licensee a receipt in the form that's been provided by the commissioner, in which you're acknowledging that the cell phone is not identified at the time of sale in a stolen cell phone database as stolen or lost cell phone. That receipt shall include the date and time of such sale and the make, model, and serial number of the cell phone. And then third, a secondhand dealer shall report within a reasonable time to the police department any secondhand cell phone that is bought to the licensee for sale and has been identified through the stolen cell phone database as stolen or lost. Upon request, that dealer shall surrender said cell phone to any member of the city's Department of Police if you're still in possession of the cell phone. So these are ordinances that we would normally check for. So again, if you're in possession of 5 or more cell phones on your business premises, that gives us a rebutable presumption that you're engaging in as a secondhand dealer, and if you don't have a license, you're unlicensed. And you will be cited for operating without the secondhand dealer's license. The prohibited purchases, again, there are 5 rules you have to follow. So make sure that you have an inventory log and a sticker attached to each cell phone for inspection by authorized personnel of BACP or the police department. The inventory book must contain the date and time when you check the cell phone database. Must contain the make, model, and serial number of that cell phone, and then the unique inventory number that you assign to the cell phone. And each phone does have to have a sticker on it that it's going to match the corresponding inventory number that, again, you decided on your own what it is. And then Rule 6 would be failure to issue the receipt on the form that's been prescribed by the commissioner, acknowledging that the cell phone is not identified at the time of sale in a stolen cell phone database. So essentially, you're going to check the database twice. If I show up to your store to sell you the phone, you're going to check at the time that you're buying it from me that it's not stolen. And then Nick walks in 2 days later to buy that same cell phone. You're going to check a second time that database again. So to go back to Matt's point, the singular form would be just for that when you're selling it. So you're supposed to check twice, once at the beginning when you're first buying it, and then a second time when you're selling it. And then failure to make that inventory log and sticker attached to the cell phone for inspection by any member of BACP or the police department can result in a citation. We keep talking about the device database. The most commonly used that we've found that people are using is the stolenphonechecker.org. The link's attached on here. The PowerPoint presentation will be made available on the website once it's up and running. And there's other services that GSMA offers, but the to your left, the screenshots are of the GSMA website, and the bottom one's the stolen phone checker website that we found most people to be using. And again, just to reiterate exemptions, you are exempt from the license if you have a contractual agreement with a cell phone provider to take trade-in of another provider's used phones in an effort to get customers on your service. Purchases or trade-ins of these used phones would be exempt from the license requirement. However, as stated earlier, if you intend to sell any of those used or traded in phones for retail, then you do need the license. Yes, sir?
You mentioned that if someone took it, used secondhand dealer took the phone in.
Yes.
And then 2 days later they want to sell it. We have 30 days.
Well, that if you're not a pawnbroker, if you're just a second-hand dealer license.
Oh, they can
Yeah.
sell it in 2 days?
Well, the pawnbroker, if you're pawning it, you have to keep it for 30 days.
No, if we buy it.
If you buy it, okay, it's 30 days, okay. Oh, for second-hand as well? Okay. I stand corrected, Detective Hawkins states it's for 30 days as well.
Second hands have to keep it 30 days.
They got it.
Okay.
I know you.
Yeah, but if it's 2 days and we 30.
Quick question, do you differentiate between blocked phones versus stolen and lost phones. And by blocked phones, I mean, if you use Swappa, for example, it'll say stolen, lost, and it's highlighted red, and it's very clear.
Okay.
You don't want, but if it's blocked, it's usually a financial reason, which means it can't be activated.
Matt, would we differentiate between a locked phone, between a stolen and lost phone when you're checking?
I might have to tell you that's a business decision. The municipal code doesn't refer to locked phones.
Not locked, blocked. And by blocked, it means if you haven't paid your bill this month, some of the phone companies will report to
Deactivate,
Swappa
yeah.
that it can't be used for activation, or it's fine. Yeah, obviously if it's finance, they usually turn it away because they don't own it yet. But
To my knowledge, the municipal code doesn't address that. It just requires you to check the stolen cell phone.
so as long as it's not highlighted red, blocked, or stolen or lost, the blocked is
That's
our own choice.
my understanding. It's in that.
And then here are a couple of tips, which we're gonna make into a tip sheet that'll go out with the industry notice. So just quick 9 points of what I explained and Detective Hilping explains. You need a secondhand dealer's license if you buy or sell used cell phones, unless you have a contractual agreement with a cell phone provider. And we suggest that you keep a copy on the premises of the contractual agreement just to avoid any confusion. The contractual agreement with the cell phone that allows you to take in trade-ins, and again, if you're going to sell the phone that you're trading in at a later date, then you are required to have the secondhand dealer's license. As a reminder, if you're in possession of 5 or more cell phones, it will be presumed that you are operating as a secondhand dealer license and you are required to obtain the license with the city. Before purchasing or receiving in trade a used cell phone, check a stolen cell phone database to verify that it is not stolen. Keep an inventory logbook with date, time that you checked, the make, model, and serial number, and then the unique inventory number that you have assigned to the phone. Attach a sticker to the phone with that unique inventory number that you come up with that's contained in the inventory logbook. Issue the receipt that's been provided by the commissioner. Check a second time on the cell phone database to make sure that it has not been reported stolen. And if a secondhand cell phone is brought in to the secondhand dealer for pawn or pledge or is identified in the stolen cell phone database, you must report to the police department within a reasonable amount of time that the phone was brought in. In the instance where the police department shows up to your stores and they find a stolen cell phone there, they do have the authority to confiscate it. They will then notify DACP, who then will give you an administrative hearing within 45 days to address why you were found in possession of a stolen cell phone. Do you guys have questions? Yes, sir?
Suppose you don't have a store, but you're selling a bunch of phones online. Example, like our phone account has 10 people on it.
Okay.
Because I got 9 kids and me and my husband. So, and then my mom and my brother, you know what I mean? And whenever we change phones, I put them all for sale, you know, Amazon,
eBay,
whatever. I mean, would I be, you know, would somebody be looking at me like I sell a bunch of stolen things, or like I'm a secondhand dealer when I'm not?
That's an interesting question, and online does sort of stretch the reach of municipal ordinances. A couple of questions that I won't answer for you because it would sort of skirt the boundary of providing legal advice that I can't do. Is are you engaged in the business of a secondhand dealer?
No.
And does that conduct take place in the city of Chicago? Those are questions that would be relevant as to whether this ordinance
So
applies.
we would look if you're doing that on a routine basis. If we if we get a consumer fraud complaint from someone who bought a phone from you and they identify you as a user, and we look at history and it shows that you've sold like 20 phones in the past year, then like that's going more towards you are a secondhand
And the real intent
cell
of
phone
the
dealer.
5 or more rule is because businesses are saying, we find a bunch of phones in their stores, and they're saying we're not buying them, but we know they are. So that was the real intent of it. It wasn't really to go after an individual that's selling his own phone or family's
Yeah.
phones.
This would be the answer, because I was always under the impression as a pawnbroker and an owner of a business, if I buy something personally, even though it's my personal stuff, I still have to act as a pawnbroker, because whether I'm in my store or whether I'm transacting something personal, I'm still a pawnbroker. Therefore, if I go to resell, if I buy something on the street and I resell it, I have to book it and hold it in my store for 30 days, for all intents and purposes. So I guess in this instance, wouldn't that be the same kind of, we've been in business for 100 years, so we book things that we buy if we buy it personally.
A pawnbroker buying anything and selling it on the street doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, I'm not talking about us selling it on the street, but let's say, for example, somebody comes in, I've got a young daughter, I've got people who bring me in motorcycles, and they're like, hey, I got this at baby shower, I want to get rid of it. I'm like, great, I have to book it, even though I'd love to buy it for my daughter. It's a brand new stroller or something, they obviously were pregnant when I knew who they were. And I'm like, I love that you brought it in for me, but I'll buy it, I'm gonna give you a ticket, I'm gonna book it, and I can't use it for 30 days. So I treat it as a transaction, so I'm not buying it on the street per se, but it's a personal purchase, not a business purchase, so I treat.
But she's coming to you because you have the expertise of.
No, she came to me because she knew that I had a kid, and she had a kid, and she happened to, there's some people in the neighborhood where she may have never done business with me whatsoever, but she knew one of my employees and, sort of like, hey, I got this and I can't use it. And then it happens more often than you think.
Let me answer that question, thing. So the person came into your store, correct?
Or they approach me as I'm walking to my car. It could be anything, but obviously, even if they approach me when I'm walking to my car, I'll say, come see me tomorrow, I've got to book it, I can't buy it on the street.
Right. Well, so if you take anything in your licensed business, you have to book it. Now, what you do outside of your business or whatever, that's fine. You or anybody representing your store, if they buy anything on the store, years ago, we had one of the stores that had an employee that was buying all kind of stolen phones on the side, quote unquote, but he was still buying inside the store. So he's quote unquote acting as an agent of the store. So the store got the administrative notice of violation, and they got a lot of citations based on their employee. So you have to realize for yourself or any employee while they're in your establishment, while they're representing your store, everything that comes in that you buy, pawn or whatever, you have to book that article.
Which we do, I just making sure that's we
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Wolf.
Every item, every electronic item that we take in, we attach a label that has the transaction number and the item number on it, the date it comes in, probably a few more things. What is the purpose of adding an extra sticker on these cell phones?
The cell phone sticker is the new requirement that is keeping a record that you checked the status of the phone when it came in for the person that pawning or selling it to you. You're labeling it that you checked it on whichever given website that you checked to see if it was reported lost or stolen. And you label that with the inventory number that you also give that phone. Okay?
It's required that we have to check it.
It's required that you have to check it.
Therefore, that's why we took it in. That's why we have the label for the transaction number and item number.
Right, so you create an inventory number of your own. Now, she opted to use the same number as the pawn number. If she wants to do that, that's fine.
It seems kind of redundant.
Well, the redundance, no, it's not redundant because if you take in an item on pawn or buy, that has nothing to do with it being a cell phone. Okay, so with it being a cell phone, you're taking an extra step because the extra step now is that you're checking into the stolen phone checker or the swapper to make sure the phone is not reported lost or stolen. That's the only item right now that you're keeping an additional log on, and you're writing on the log what website you use to check to see if the phone was reported lost or stolen. And you're giving it a number, a log number, that's it. It's just for cell phones. This is the new amended ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, let me first say, I realize I'm in the wrong class, but which brings me to my question. I was actually buying used furniture, selling it just for me, which it is becoming very lucrative. So I'm just trying to find out what regulations or what would I need to actually turn it into to buying used furniture and reselling it, because the problem is like once I research it everywhere I go, even on the internet, it only leads me to the pawn and to the the electronics and everything.
So I'm sorry, do you have a used furniture store now, or are you going to?
No, I'm doing it now.
Okay, they'll address that question, but it depends on what type of items you're taking in.
Okay.
I believe if you're going into electronics as a part of those.
If all you're doing is strictly furniture, then you wouldn't need a limited business license for it. However, if you're dealing with children's products, if you're doing cribs, strollers, playpens, then you would need a regulated business license. It's a secondhand dealer for children's products.
Okay, so just for children basically. So anything else?
Anything else would just be a limited business license.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Maybe a question for you. What are you guys doing about businesses that, let's say, are jewelry stores, whether mom and pop or larger, or kiosks, or other businesses that might be buying collectibles, or maybe not necessarily furniture, but other items where they could be dealing 70% in one area, but certainly if somebody comes in and wants to sell them watches or jewelry or diamonds or anything, they're gonna buy it. They're not reporting anything on me. They're not a part of any of this. They're not regulated by any of this. Well, I guarantee you that jewelry stores that are selling jewelry and somebody walks in and sells them some jewelry, they're not reporting it. Because this requires a computer program, requires a person who knows how to do it, entering data. That's
A piece of jewelry or a watch, or if it meets the definition of what would be secondhand.
You need to file a complaint with us.
Yeah,
We'll
it'd be-
investigate it and see if they're selling second.
They would need a secondhand dealer's license.
But every regular jewelry store without a secondary,
Yeah,
without a
they're all
secondary,
buying, so.
they're required to have that license.
Second-hand dealer if they're buying and selling.
What if they trade? Let's say they bring in an item, they want to trade their jewelry for something and for another piece. Would that be?
Secondhand.
Would that be secondhand?
Yeah, because
Even if you have to trade it?
they're not gonna keep that first piece that they traded in for personal use. They're gonna sell it later or melt it and turn it
Is
into
it
something
defined
else.
as
But
used?
yeah,
I mean, that's
It would,
basically
they
it.
would
So
need
you
a
do
secondhand.
need a secondhand dealer license?
Yes.
So
Even purchasing used,
So
even if I'm not trading.
any jewelry store that is not a pawnbroker and doesn't have a license, they're, without the secondhand dealer's license, they
They are
can
not
take in
allowed
a
to.
trade.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But that's my point, but since they are, how are you checking to see that they have the second-hand
And
license?
I'll use
and are
Treasures as
reporting
an
it?
example, at
Aren't
Ford
we?
City Mall.
Okay.
They regularly will tell their customers, bring us your jewelry and you can upgrade. And we'll help you buy something else. And they do it all the
Do
time.
they have a
right?
secondary dealer's license?
I'm not sure, I've actually never been to Treasures, but I just know my customers regularly come to me and.
Because I know the one downtown does.
Does it?
Call 311 to give us that information.
Right.
That's the best I can
So
tell
you
you.
guys are just relying on somebody to report them to
We're
you?
getting a little far afield, but if we find out about that, we'll investigate it, and if there's a violation, we'll cite them. We do have to find out.
I think what the lady mentioned is that, because I've asked that question too, I had police officers come over to my store, and I said, go ahead, here's all the information that you need. And I asked them, well, how come you're not regulating or checking my neighbors? My customers come in and say, I buy from so-and-so and so-and-so next door, and they don't have a license, because we know who has a license and who doesn't. And I guess she's asking, how do you regulate that?
We got no knowledge. Our guys go out, but we got no knowledge.
So when you say you got
A lot of the stores on 5 South Wabash, I remember years ago, I actually did go to Florida in that building years ago. Half of them had secondhand dealer licenses. I know for a fact. That was a long time ago.
But if they don't,
the other half we're concerned about.
That's the other half.
We gotta know about it.
We're-
Okay,
We're regulated to the.
Call us. I mean,
It's the same, it's the same.
Give us the name of business, say they're selling secondhand jewelry, we'll go and get them. We have to know about it. We're not sweeping completely, we're not combing the area for it, we gotta know about it. We're complaint driven,
So who do you call, 311 or you call?
We won't call 311.
Okay, also, I believe you guys have, you can go on your website and report it as well.
Yes, yes.
You can report it on their website as well, BACP, under investigation. You can report a store that's not doing what they're supposed to do. You can do that online as well, or you can call 311. Or you can notify myself. In the past, I've had other people tell me that stores were, I personally went to a laundromat several years ago, and they had We Buy Gold on the window, and I go in, I go around the back, and I'll pull up in a police car, my ID, and they're washing clothes, and I said, they buy gold here? Yeah, go around the back. So I go around the back, and the guy had a little desk set up like that with a little bell, and I heard ding, ding, ding. I had my college ring on me. I said, hey, you guys buy gold? Yeah, what you got for me? Then I identified myself and asked him to see his license, which I already knew. He only had a license for coin-operated machines, which is for laundromat. So I told him he was a very elderly gentleman. I said, hey, look, this was during the We Buy Gold craze. I said, look, you got to take that sign down. You don't have the proper license. You're a laundromat. You're not a secondhand, or you're not a pawnbroker. So it does happen. If you see it, please report it to BACP investigator, or report it to myself, and I'll get it to Miguel Campos or
So
Nick
just
Janulis.
to have this clear in my mind, the stores that I see all over the city of Chicago that are buying collectibles, antiques, this, that, a great variety of different items. They're buying it all day long, they're reselling it. They might have or might not have a license, I have no idea, I don't have a way of checking them. But I guarantee you, they don't have a full-time employee entering data into leads for every trinket that they take in. There's thousands of trinkets.
Not that we're looking
So,
to investigate,
I
but
mean,
is there a
I'm trying to
database
figure
with
out
all?
if all this is.
There is a city database that will contain information for all current licenses in the city. You guys can type in whether it's DBA or an address.
But
and it'll give
can you tell us, are you receiving this these leads online information from the stores that I'm describing? Are you getting thousands of these? I mean, imagine somebody has to sit and report, somebody brought a teapot, I bought a plate, I bought a teapot. Somebody's doing this or not doing this?
To answer your question, Albina, the only people that are doing leads online are licensed secondhand dealers and licensed pawnbrokers.
Well, they would need a secondhand license if they're buying secondhand property. They would need a license. My point is a pawn shop might have to report 10 transactions, 40 transactions. Something like them would have to report hundreds,
The
thousands.
places on Broadway.
So
in the
I
neighborhood.
guarantee you that's not being done. So
Yeah, I understand that. You're talking about just like that young lady said, a used furniture place. They're buying used things. They're buying something pre-owned, okay? The focus now is just mainly on, it appears to me, just electronics, jewelry, things of that nature. People would use furniture stores, a limited business license is only required at this time. But if they start getting into buying electronics and jewelry, bicycles that are serialized items, then they need to get a secondhand dealer's license or a pawnbroker's license. And for you, Lazaro, you're doing trading, your pawnbroker license, if it's a pawn shop, it covers the trading. Otherwise, your secondhand license will cover the trading as well. Yes?
I apologize, I didn't have his name. He had said something about if you get a ticket for having a stolen phone on your possession and then they take it. If you have the logbook and it shows that it was clear the day you took it in, and obviously sometimes we have to hold it for 30 days, so sometime in that 30 days it becomes stolen and officers come to take it, you wouldn't get a ticket if you
not
don't
not
have
at
a
the time.
logbook.
No, that's the purpose you have in your logbook.
Purchased it before it showed up on the.
It'll be confiscated and you'll be out of luck for the purchase.
Right,
price.
but I mean, there's gonna be some common sense used in the sense of they're gonna look at the
Yes,
logbook and say,
yeah.
here it is. 'Cause I know
Yeah,
you
you
sort
checked
of-
on this date at this time, yeah.
Got it, just making sure.
Just Pat's question, you might be able to answer me on that. We had a scenario just the other week where our our system would only upload the information we would type in the leads, but it wouldn't upload the photos. We actually emailed leads for support tech. It took about meaning the information was loaded up every day. We load up about 9 a.m. But they did not have the photos up for days. And we were working in tech with leads. If we ever got ticketed on something like that, would the evidence of us being in touch through email with leads change anything? Meaning if we were standing before you and we were ever ticketed on something like that, and we had communication with leads trying to resolve this issue over a period of days, would that be a defense against the ticket?
The obligation is to send the information to leads. That situation is getting very specific, and you probably want to give all the correspondence and information you have to your lawyer and see if they want to give that to me.
Gotcha. No, this was just a scenario we were emailing back and forth the leads to resolve a communication problem. The information was already loaded, the photos were
If
not.
you could prove that there was a glitch, I'm sure.
In the original documentation that was given when these was implemented, which I
No one's gonna kill us.
brought recently to court when I
Okay.
saw you, or not you, but one of your guys. It actually states, if there's a delay in any way or a problem that you're having with leads, you're supposed to call Detective Hilbring and let him know why there's a delay and what's
He's
going
got a little
on
tool
within
that we
24 hours.
Right.
I'm assuming that that's still an acceptable thing.
Yeah,
'Cause
that is correct. If anybody has any issues uploading their daily transactions, the leads online, please contact myself, preferably by email, so I have something documented. Or if you call me, I usually ask people to send me an email, just in case in the interim, someone comes in from law enforcement and tries to issue you a administrative notice of violation for the item because the photo didn't get uploaded. Some of these glitches do happen. Pawn Master, you guys take a picture of copy pawn and you link it to Leads Online. Sometimes Leads Online has a glitch or vice versa. Sometimes Pawn Master has a glitch and Leads Online doesn't get it. So in the event, if you feel that it's not uploaded, please notify me. Or for you guys with your jury, with watches and jury, if your camera malfunctions or something for some reason, or your software crashes or something, please notify me and let me know what's going on and the status of it, just in case in the interim someone comes in and say, hey, here's your administrative notice of violation that you didn't upload your photo. I have it documented that you did send me.
Yeah, I was
You were
just
having
curious
problems
what
with your
what would be
software.
the official procedure on that?
Yeah, notifying myself, and I'll have it as a record that you are having some issues at the time frame. Yes, Mr. Bell. Yes.
Yeah. The questions that I heard from Steve, the answers that I heard response from Matt, was based on the perception that one of the two parties was aware that there was a malfunction in the system. What is the situation if neither one of the two parties is aware there's a malfunction in the system? Neither the person entered, in the case, maybe the pawnbroker, or the company that maintains the software, which might be Pawnmaster. There's an error in the system that Leads Online says we didn't get this. But they don't notice either one of the two parties. The person that's the party that sent it, nor the party that it was stored with the computer on site. Those two parties say everything is fine. But that third party, the one that represents the city, did not sufficiently get the information. And they don't notice either one of these other two parties, hey, we got a problem. So these other two parties, Steve and his software company, thinks everything's fine. We sent it off, they got it, everything's good. But everything's not good. That third party, the city, goes in and says, hey, there's a problem here. There's no pictures. Well, the other two parties have pictures. It's in the software, in the Pawnbrokers system. It's in that software system that third party Pawnmaster put in there. But that third party, there was an error with their system. And I know this happens because we periodically will get notices from Leads Online from months ago, not days. Oh, you did not know something 6 months ago. Oh, we didn't. And we'll have to go back in and correct what they say was an error from 6 months ago. But yet still, who gets cited? Does the software company get cited? No. Does Leads Online get cited? No. Steve gets cited. Steve gets a ticket. Oh, you didn't abide. But Steve says, wait a minute, I did everything I was supposed to. The software comes in, it's right there. Nobody cites the one who issued an error falsely. That's the Leads Online. Hey, how about citing Leads Online and say, hey, you gotta come up with something that tells them that they've done everything in a timely fashion.
I think a fair question is, does a hearing officer, and you're a hearing officer, right?
I'm a prosecutor.
Okay.
The judge is the hearing officer.
Whoever hears these cases, do they basically look at it as the totality?
And
Just say,
yeah,
the intent was not this, there was not, you
There's
understand what I'm saying?
There's an
right?
opportunity
You
for
know,
a
it
hearing,
depends upon
the
that person.
respondent
They can see
Yeah.
can offer evidence. You use the word intent, which by and large doesn't matter.
I understand. That's what I'm saying, is does whoever hears these cases, and we haven't had a problem up to date on that, I'm just inquiring about that. Does whoever hears these cases look at the situation and say, okay, wait a minute, this person has uploaded photos for the last 800 days and 3 days are missing? And
you would have the opportunity to offer any evidence you wanted to.
Okay.
That's,
You know, Steve, there's no,
You
you
have to
did
put
not
it in
print
a-
out
you're
anything.
guilty.
Yeah, I'm just asking what the theory.
Yeah, so we've talked about,
behind it is.
we've talked about glitches, and it does happen, and it's happened in the past.
'Cause in
And
the computer
unfortunately,
world, and we're all a little older, we're not that.
and unfortunately, some people had got citations for it, administrative notice of violations for it. It was presented to the hearing officer, where Matt and them were, and they were able to review the history of maybe what you had in your software versus what was in Leads Online. And as Matt was saying, that's critical to keep a record of what you have loaded and uploaded, okay? Even if it doesn't go to Leads Online, you know it went in your software that you sent it to Leads Online. And then, as Elizabeth here stated, you can randomly, your managers in your store, you can randomly, while you have some free time, go into your history, your Leads Online history, to see and make sure that everything has been uploaded. Then also, if you don't, you can always give me a call, I can check it out, or Leads Online on their website, they have a support system where you can verify to make sure your items are being uploaded and being received.
We found that it's most helpful that you don't even log out of Leads until that those pictures
Successfully go through.
successfully load. You just hit refresh.
Okay.
And if you get a ticket, you're gonna have a month or so before the court date, so it gives you time to contact Leads, like Bill said, and bring your evidence to court. I don't know what to tell you.
yeah, so we're gonna run out of time here in about 5 minutes. I want to make sure that I do at least briefly address the administrative hearing process. I hope that doesn't happen. You know, it's not something I particularly enjoy, but it is what the good people of the city pay me to do. If an investigator from BACP or a member of CPD investigates the store and finds a violation of any of these ordinances, they'll issue an administrative notice of violation. That's a citation that'll show the conduct alleged, the code sections alleged to be violated, and notifies you of a hearing date. Those hearing dates are mandatory. It's not something you can decide to just pay the fine and send it in like a parking ticket. Somebody will need to appear. If the business is a corporation, an LLC, a legal entity other than a person, an attorney will have to represent the business. At that initial hearing, you can show whatever evidence you may have to the prosecutor. That's me or someone like myself, and we'll review that, review the allegations by the investigating officer or investigator, and make a settlement offer. In the majority of cases, we'll propose a fine. You can say yes or no to that. Also, if we look at the evidence you've brought and find that maybe there was something the investigator didn't know, maybe there was a mistake, those cases can be dismissed at that point. Usually they're not. We make a settlement offer. If you accept it, a fine will be imposed by the hearing officer, and that's the end of the matter. If it's not accepted, you have the right always to a contested hearing. That probably happens at a further date, a later date. The city will at that time present its evidence. That's generally the testimony of the investigator or police officer. There may be documents as well. There may be documents from leads online, for instance, showing that reports weren't made timely. Then you'll be able to present your evidence to the hearing officer, who will, on the basis of all that, make a decision if the municipal code was violated and either rule for or against the city. If you win, there's no fine, obviously. If you lose on any count, the hearing officer will impose a fine per the municipal code. For most of these violations, it's between $500 and $2,000 per count. But that is set by ordinance in each case. I can answer questions about that if anybody has them. I bring it all up because it's receiving the ticket, especially the notice of violation, is something your employees should be prepared to handle. A manager or someone on scene has to give the investigator or police officer their identification so the ticket can be issued. It's something they should be trained for.
Maybe just a quick general question for you as a lawyer. I noticed recently people will call a store on the phone and they'll say, well, something was stolen from me and I made out the police report and the police are telling me to check all the local pawn shops. What do you recommend is a good answer to these people on the phone? Because obviously they can't check anything. A pawn shop is holding it for 30 or 60 days. So it's not like they can come in and see it. And so police is actually giving them sort of erroneous information. Also, there's no way for anyone to know that it even went to a pawn shop. It could be anywhere. It could be for sale on eBay. But what is a good answer that you would recommend to such people?
I don't think I'm going to be able to answer
I
that
can
question for you.
I can answer that.
It's very simple.
I can answer
The
that
information
question.
you put down is privileged information.
Right.
In other words, you cannot divulge it to anyone.
That's correct,
Police
Mr.
can
Bell.
do it, but no one else.
Let me answer that question.
I'm getting lots of
Let me-
calls where they say the police are telling me to check.
Don't matter.
Can I answer that question?
Right, so.
Let me answer that question. Yeah, if you get a phone call like that, just give them my number, my office number only, okay? Because when they call me, I'm going to first ask them if they made a police report for the item, okay? That's number one. They have to have a police report. And if they have a name, a suspect's name or a serial number, I could run it for them to see if it's been pawned or sold in any secondhand or pawn shop. Just give them my office number only. Unfortunately, she's right. Some detectives tell these people, oh, just check your local pawn shops to see, if your item is there. And then if it happened yesterday, the pawn shop, if it took it in, it wouldn't be out on display because they have to hold the item 30 calendar days, so it'd be in the back.
A lot of people just do it on their own.
Yeah, or then some
I got a call
people,
this morning like
some
that.
people do, they go check the
Is there
stores
any
too.
particular reason you're calling us?
Right.
She says, no. She said, I
Right.
passed by there, you guys are a beautiful store.
Right.
And my ring was beautiful.
Right, right. Yeah, they just refer them, give them my number, and we'll
It's
see.
federal law. You can't reveal this.
That's
It's
correct.
federal law.
The Rights to Privacy Act, you cannot, right. That's why you refer them to me, say, hey, here's our liaison, you can call him if you think something's in our store. Give me a call.
Told by the people who come in our store who say the same thing, it's not the detectives that are telling me something because I haven't been assigned to a detective yet. It's the officer that took the report who, even though they're supposed to have been trained on leads online, that's going, yeah, go to your pawn shop. I usually push back the person, tell them, first, call the detective that gets assigned to your case. If he does not go on leads online himself, then I send them off to Detective
Yeah,
Hilton.
I usually
So,
just am
and I-
nice to them and I
yeah.
just direct them to the police.
You know, you don't give them much information, you basically explain to them that, you know, as Mr. Bella said, it's proprietary information and it's Privacy Act covered.
Yes,
Well,
Jen.
You know, I had the situation where the computer, the guy said that it looked like his computer, and I had the Chicago Police Department come in and search on my computer.
Right.
Which was like, just because he said I had it and it looked like his,
Right.
and they actually went through all my Apple laptop.
Right. Well, they're allowed to do that, and then the officer saw that it was not his
Yeah,
computer.
I mean, like, he
But
had
they're
the
allowed to,
report already and
I know you explained that to him. Her particular thing is, officers, they came in with a victim alleging that his computer was stolen the other day. It was specifically Apple, and she let the officers know she didn't even take any apples in, but they wanted to check every Apple computer in her store, which is fine. If they want to use the time, you have nothing to hide, let them check. They checked it, it was to no avail, right?
But I mean, what if every customer comes in like that? There's a lot of customers that come in like that.
Well, if they come in with the police, then the police will handle it. But I mean, if they come in on their own, just refer them to me. Don't say anything. Say, if you think an item is here, you got to call our pawn shop liaison, and he'll have to check it out for you.
Thanks, Bill.
Any questions otherwise?